Yes.
Sorry. Thanks.
Him first.
Yeah, I think the religious issue you strictly avoid, but it may be interesting to also see how pro-choice groups are using the religious issue to their advantage.
We don't avoid it with pro-choicers. Yeah.
Okay. Like for example, there's a group of Catholic women for the right to choose.
Right. Oh.
And they try to use St. Thomas Aquinas' arguments to favor abortion.
Okay, well, let me clarify. For religious people who are pro-choice and based on religious arguments, that's not our domain. We cannot respond to them because we're not versed in those arguments. In fact, that's almost the exact flip side. That's where you should use the religious basis for being pro-life, and we're going to leave that up to Christian pro-lifers because we are not good at it. So for pro-choicers who base it on religion, actually we don't have a lot to say to them because we don't share a premise. But pro-choicers who are very secular, who are saying, oh, you just do this because you're religious or so forth, that's where we bring up religion a lot. We avoid religion with other pro-lifers because we don't want to fight about things that don't matter to the abortion debate, we just want to work together. But when it comes to pro-choicers, how many times, Ellen, how many times have you had arguments where you'll give a completely secular reason for being anti-abortion, and they'll start talking about how it's because you're just religious, and then you're like,
you're not really listening.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They get really mad.
Then they get pissed.
Seriously. I wasn't kidding before when I said that they use this as a sideshow. I think that's why we have so much hostility from them, because then they actually have to talk about it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what do you do when they get angry?
It depends on the context. If it's on the internet, we don't care. If it's in person, it's trickier. Different people have different philosophies on this. There's a pro-life philosopher, if you haven't already heard of him, named Josh Brahm. He does a podcast called Life Report. Highly recommend it. He's a Christian, and some of it's based on Christian stuff, whether you're a Christian or not. It's still very, very good. And his philosophy is to basically listen to understand what people are saying, find common ground, always consider the person in front of you, and try to make a human connection. I think it's a very good philosophy. I'm a little bit different in the sense that I will quit a lot sooner than he will.
Yeah.
He will keep going with people and try to come to an understanding. If I feel like a person is not entering the conversation in interest, if they're just entering it to be angry, I might for a while let them be angry and try to figure out where they're coming from. But if they're really just being ridiculous, I mean, as an example, I wrote a blog post very recently called The Anti-Choice War on Women that took some of the stats I showed you tonight and more and explained why it's ridiculous. Like, there's no correlation based on gender, and I'm getting sick of, as a woman, being told that I hate women and women don't think this when actually a lot of women think this. And so I wrote a blog post about that. And one of our most favorite detractors, she follows us and just hates on us continually, she reposted it and she said, let me see if I can get this right. She said that she doesn't deny that some women are anti-choice, and she doesn't deny that even some secular women are anti-choice, but there's no way you can be anti-choice without being infected by religious ideas. So she thinks I hate myself, she thinks I'm infected by religion. People like that, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm just going to move on, because there's no talking to some people. So.
Do you wash your hands after every time you?
Every time I'm online? Yeah.
Every time you're around religion?
Oh, no.
Because you might be infected.
Keep in mind too, they might be infected. Just putting this out there, kind of go back to what you were saying earlier, is both pro-choice secularists and pro-lifers of faith, I think, forget this. A lot of secularists are people who used to be religious. So that makes a difference in a couple of ways. The first one is they might already know what you're talking about. I find that when people find out I'm agnostic, they assume that I have always been agnostic and don't know anything about Christianity. In fact, I was raised Catholic, and I was Catholic kind of hardcore about it till I was 16, and my mother is still Catholic, and my grandmother is Catholic, and I actually am I wouldn't say that I know everything, but I'm fairly well versed in Catholicism, and I find it kind of frustrating when people assume that because I'm an agnostic, I have no idea. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's not for everybody. Some people who used to be religious and become secular, for whatever reason they go through, they think, this doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to move on, it's not a big deal. But for some people, they become secular from a place of pain. They become secular because of bad experiences, maybe with other people of faith, maybe with a specific church, maybe whatever they think they did or didn't go through with God, and for them it can be a very raw, upsetting thing And a lot of people forget that. They think you're secular, that means you don't care. They think people of faith, their faith is such a core part of their being that it's so important to them, but they assume that for secularists it's not the same way. Some of them it's not, but some of them it is. And so when you talk about religion, that's another reason it can be a problem, is not just that they feel kind of weird and out of place. Sometimes it's actually painful for them to be around. And again, we do not advocate for getting rid of your faith. I'm just asking you to be aware, especially if you're trying to be inclusive and diverse, that people can be coming from very different places, and you never know who you're talking to, I guess, basically. Wow, what time is it?
8
o'clock.
Okay.
I think we'll close now, but we can be around for questions.
Yeah, I can stick around. Do you have to go? Yeah, no, we can stick around.
All right, but thank you all so much for coming.